Final ending to my story. All other parts links are down in comments. Let's jump in. My wife's condition continues to get worse. Severe headaches are almost constant, vertigo, loud ear ringing in her left ear, etc. She walks around like a drunken sailor. Sorry for you Navy guys. Her rheumatologist stopped her chemo. She was on this for over 6 years, 6K every 8 weeks. She is now on a new pill and no bad results from stopping the chemo. But her doctor was concerned about her condition and recommended other tests, and doctors saw a neurologist and fired him. In fact, she walked out of his office. He was a jerk and did not want to do tests other than a stupid sleep study. We found a new neurologist at Jefferson. She is great. Got it right away and recommended a bunch of tests. Found out my wife has severe stenosis in her neck that the doctor feels are causing her problems. The test shows mild, moderate and severe stenosis on her spinal cord in the region on her neck, more than likely caused by arthritis. This causes all or most of the symptoms she is having. The severe stenosis is on the left side, which causes the ear ringing in her left ear. My wife started to have severe itching in her legs and it has spread all over her body to include her face. She saw a dermatologist in Delaware yesterday, and she is having my wife go through a battery of tests to include being tested for lung, skin and blood cancers. She feels though that it is neurological due to the stenosis, but she is also being cautious, thus other tests. My wife was pleased with this doctor in that she had read all my wife's recent tests prior to my wife's appointment. She was very thorough. Based upon the tests that she has had, she still has tons of blood work and biopsies to have done. The neurologist set her up to see a neurosurgeon. At the end of March, she will see the neurosurgeon and later in the day see her neurologist. Unfortunately, the severe stenosis can lead to permanent paralysis if not treated. The 3 types of surgeries that could be done are problematic, and that too could lead to a permanent neck brace and at least 6 months of recovery. The typical recovery period for one of the surgeries for a woman my wife's age is at least 6 months or longer. We will not know if surgery is an option until we meet with the neurosurgeon later in March. My wife typically goes to bed early in the evening as her condition worsens later in the afternoon through the evening. By evening she is typically curled up in a ball. She gets up around 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. due to the headache and itching. She typically has a Bible verse for me in the morning and we read the scriptures and pray every morning and evening. This morning my wife prayed, "Lord, I want to thank you for the mercy and compassion Mac has shown me over the past months, for him taking me back and giving me another chance." Last weekend we visited her younger brother for the first time since early last year. I was very anxious but it turned out fine. My wife, even with all her physical problems, is still doing a lot of heavy lifting and she is very sincere in her efforts. Our physical life is very poor due to her illness. I have talked to her about it and she feels bad about it. During the week it is the worst, because by the time I get home she is in a bad state. So, we only have weekends and that does not always work out if she is having a bad day. She tells me I can have it whenever I want it, but in reality, when I see her curled up in a ball, no matter how bad I might want Bond, I just can't. I trigger less, but her affairs are with me every day. It does get better with time, but I am not at a point of where I am not reminded every day about it. I certainly don't rage or drink, but it has had a tremendous impact on my life. My wife knows every time I even think about it. That is how in tune she is with me and tells me that she is here for me. Still does not take the sting away, and I have hope that eventually this too will pass. He has been checked. The doctors were worried at first that she may have had MS, a brain tumor, or a stroke. Those were ruled out. Her other doctors tested her for lupus. The aunt tested her for inner ear issues to include Maynard's, and it all pointed to a central nervous system issue. The rheumatologist was worried about central nervous system lupus caused by her chemo, and that was ruled out. And many of her other tests ruled out things, but never until now did her tests reveal the cause. Even though she has severe stenosis, we still have to see what the neurosurgeon says. The dermatologist that she saw yesterday believes her itchy skin is also caused by this, as her central nervous system issues can cause the nerves in her body to itch. But certain cancers can cause itching, so she wants to rule cancer out, e.g. lung, skin and blood cancers, which she will be tested for in the next week or so. I am hopeful that this is all caused by the stenosis and that it can be fixed. Doing research on the surgeries for stenosis is pretty frightening. My wife makes attempts and is constantly apologizing. She will make statements like, "I am tired of feeling sick all the time and I should be doing more things with you. I am in the process of refinishing tables, laying a hardwood floor and ceiling in our sunroom," all things she uses to help me with. She can't do any of those things. We rarely go shopping together. I force her to get out, but these are typically very brief trips. I am working on removing any resentment I have towards her and to keep my mind from wanting to see her pay for what she has done. That is what I mean by not totally forgiving her. I still have resentments and thoughts of payback from time to time. Last night my wife was looking and feeling ill. This morning she looked like hell. I told her last night that I feel somewhat lonely in all this. She was crying and felt horrible, and we were talking a little, and this is when I spoke of feeling lonely. She said she does not want me to feel lonely. I know she is depressed, and I have talked to her about it. I know she is frustrated with all the wasted time with various doctors. If we had gone to this new neurologist in the beginning, we would have seen the neurosurgeon months ago. And she is frustrated with that. I am getting to a point of accepting what happened with my wife's affairs. I don't want to come across as arrogant, but I still see no fault in myself as far as causing my wife to do what she did. All the excuses that she threw up at me over the years have no merit. As she said, she became lost, selfish, self-centered, and did not care. And she said it had nothing to do with me. Presently I do have a plan for self-care, and I just have to change a few things around the house, and I will be able to do a little more for me. About 2 months later, my wife continues to get worse. She is having numbness and tingling in her left leg and hip. This started within the last 2 weeks. She started physical therapy, and her therapist is very concerned, but we can't see the neurosurgeon any sooner. The past 2 days she looks like hell. I just took her to the store and she had to lean on me as she could not walk by herself. She is having problems going to the bathroom. Her new dermatologist thought she might have cancer in addition to her central nervous system issues. Ultrasound and other tests showed no cancer. Her one foot is going numb. Her walking ability is becoming worse. We see the neurosurgeon on end of the month. The diagnosis of severe stenosis points to all her issues, to include the severe itching skin. I looked at her MRI and MRA, and the MRI clearly shows the bone. If I remember correctly, it is C4 and C5 in her neck, pushing against the spinal cord. She sleeps a good bit of the day and can't do much. Her oldest brother has a parishioner in his church that had the same thing, and almost didn't make it. After the surgery, he has to learn to walk again as he lost that ability. And the recovery period, we are told, is a long process. Right now, we are thinking that there are possible procedures: fusion and total disc arthroplasty, which is a newer procedure, basically fusing the bones or replacing them. On the positive side, I was on our FB today and forgot I left it on at work. She started chatting to an old college friend of hers that I had sent messages to about my wife's cheating. My wife did not know I was on, and she said very positive things about me. Ironically, all the previous posts of me complaining about my wife's cheating to this friend are all still on there, and my wife did not delete them. As serious as this is, the doctors do not look at this as an emergency. Serious, yes. Requiring emergency care, no. We have a request for an earlier appointment. We have looked at other neurosurgeons, as my insurance allows us to go just about anywhere without a referral. None can give us an earlier appointment. If I took my wife to ER, where her doctors are located, they would not admit my wife. I just called again and they told me someone will be calling my wife in the next 15 minutes. I gave my wife a heads up. She had called earlier today and got the runaround, and she told me she does not have the energy to argue and left a message and did not receive a call back. I was in a rush this morning and did not pray for her as I normally do in the morning. I did pray for her all the way on my drive to work and sent her a text. She called me and told me that she prays for me a lot and that she is praying harder for me now, knowing that I have my own difficulties in dealing with what she has done and now her condition. Since July last year, when this all started with my wife being sick, I have been putting a lot on the back burner. I have questions that I would like answered from time to time. I have asked her some, but most of the time I keep them to myself. I wanted to take her out to a hotel and have some fun. Could not be done. 1. Right now bonding is out of the question. Honestly, it won't be enjoyable. 2. She tells me that she wants to be here for me and says I deserve better, but she can't help this. 3. I feel like any moment she will either pass or be permanently paralyzed. I check on her at night to see if she is still warm. Sounds morbid, but as I see her progressively getting worse, I am expecting the worst. 4. Our special needs son, age 29, asked me the other day, "Is mom going? She looks and seems like she is going to faint." All I could say is, I don't know. 5. I don't believe in karma per se, but it does seem to me that there is some type of divine intervention going on here. I am going to put on my theological hat. Suffering, as I understand it, can happen to anyone, good or bad. The Bible says, the rain falls on the just and the unjust. Suffering is one of those great mysteries. Job never got an answer as to his suffering. David in the Psalms wrote about the prospering of the wicked. There are cases in the scriptures where good people suffered badly, and other cases where they were blessed beyond measure in this life. Some evildoers were punished or even had their lives end abruptly, and in other passages, evildoers seem to have no consequences at all for their evil deeds. The righteous can suffer as well as the unrighteous, and both can be blessed in this life. I will never understand it, nor do I lose sleep over it. Pain, suffering, and evil are things that many theologians, philosophers, have tried to address. Whether you come from a secular point of view or a religious one, as I have read quite a bit on this subject over the years, it seems that there are no answers. But I do subscribe to a view that there are some good attempts. 6. I am at a loss right now. I had to put many things that I wanted to deal with in on hold. I am somewhat okay with it under the circumstances. I feel pity for my wife. She has done a lot to bring about healing, by being transparent, answering questions, not blaming me, praising me, etc., but physical intimacy has died. There is little emotional support right now from her, and this is not her fault. When I say my wife is ill, I mean she is very ill. Is this fair? Hell no. I bent over backwards, and if I told you all what she did to me, what I found out she did to me, you would more than likely puke your liver and spleens out your noses. 7. Last year, even with good health insurance, I paid more than 5 Kelvin out of pocket for her medical care. This year, I will be spending more than 8 Kelvin out of pocket. So much for affordable care. And I am not a wealthy guy. I live paycheck to paycheck. My wife had to quit her job. All my medical stuff is free due to being considered a disabled veteran. So I pay absolutely nothing for my care. Yeah, I am ranting. I feel like my head is going to explode. I have not cried in almost a year and I feel like I could. Am I going to be okay? Yes, I have Christ in my life and I am sure that there is nothing that I can't bear as long as He is in my life. I am not saying that I don't need to talk to someone. I will shortly. I am not saying that I am above seeking worldly help. I am going to in a few minutes. But this too will pass and I will make it. Just feel overwhelmed by it all. Talk to the neurologist. We are leaving for the ER in a few minutes. He feels that there was a spinal cord episode and wants her to be seen right away. Long night. Saw a neurologist and neurosurgeon. My wife is getting another MRI as I write this. They want to compare this one with the one she had in February. She is now having problems urinating and can't walk unassisted. This started 3 days ago. The neurologist was sticking her with a pin on her face, arms, and legs, and she only felt a sharp prick near her lip. She said all the rest was a dull object. Update: my wife spent last weekend in the hospital. I called a neurologist who insisted I take her to the ER. My wife started having problems going to the washroom along with everything else. Long story short, spent Friday night till Monday evening in the hospital. Met with over 6 neurologists, over 3 neurosurgeons, to include the chief of neurosurgery, urologists, and a host of other specialists. Over 2 hours of MRIs, massive blood work and other tests. She was discharged Monday with a walker. Now she has to use a walker. Nothing definitive, very frustrating. Ruled out everything again, brain tumor, MS, lupus, etc. The 2 last neurologists we met with stated often in neurology they can't figure everything out and they wish they could. All I can say is my wife keeps getting worse. She is scheduled to see a neuro-ophthalmologist in June, has started vestibular therapy, and will follow up with neuro. If you look up the symptoms of multiple sclerosis, you basically will see all the symptoms my wife is having. Last week she started having issues with her bladder, not being able to get a stream going or keeping it going without pushing extremely hard. The urologist thinks it is all related to her neck issues, as does her main neurologist, yet the MRIs show that the stenosis is not as severe as they thought. So now my wife has a brand new walker. I find myself perplexed at all of this. Part of me says she deserves it, yet I am the one holding it all together, having to take care of her, etc. It is an awful weight to carry. There are things I want to discuss about her affairs, but since about July last year, I have basically said very little about it. I know she feels bad about the whole thing and has mentioned again that I deserve better than this and that she should be supporting me. I think I could have dealt with this disability under normal circumstances. But the fact that she had affairs for the past 3 years really is a hard pill to swallow. The biggest issue is she continues to get worse. There has been no plateau. Last week was the start of her urinary problems. With each new symptom it just adds to her misery. It does seem to be some type of central nervous system disorder. I have been around the medical field enough to know that some things never have a firm diagnosis. She put the walker away saying she is humiliated to use it. I will encourage her to use it. We went out a little earlier and she had to hang on me the entire time. She is too unsteady with a cane. My wife did care for my feet when I came home. She gave me a pedicure and foot massage. I fell asleep. Our golden retriever fell asleep with his head on my stomach, and our little mixed dog, Rosie, curled up on my chest and fell asleep. As far as remorse, I see it in my wife. Frankly, I can bring things up about the past and she will talk about it, but I have been hesitating for months. As far as faking it, there are too many tests that show she has severe arthritis, as she was on chemo for this for over 6 years, and has a few joint deformities. The stenosis in her neck is real, though not as severe as they told us in February. So, I do believe something is seriously wrong with her. No pun intended. I actually kind of hit the wall. So, this past weekend I started getting my wood shop in order. I have several projects I put on hold and just started piling things up. So I put a lot of things away and have my workspace back and will get working on 2 tables. One just needs refinishing, another one I am building from scratch with savaged American chestnut. I basically have all the things done and just need to join the planks for the tabletop and figure out what type of legs I will make. I also have a bed frame for my son's queen-size bed that I made out of barn beams that just need a few final touches. I also got a jump start on my professional license that I had put off since 3 years ago. I really put that on the back burner and would have been promoted twice if I would have completed it. Just for completing it I will jump 2 pay grades, and after 6 months I will more than likely get another pay grade increase, and that will be as high as I can go. My boss put off his retirement just to see me get a particular position, and he is still waiting on me to get it done so he can get me into a position and retire. So, I am well on my way on this. I also looked at some more grad programs this weekend. Right now, all my tuition will be covered, plus I can receive up to $18,000 a month tax-free in income, in addition to having my tuition and books covered. I don't need another degree, but I really want to use this program as I am eligible. Just have to look at the various programs, my schedule, etc. Doctors want to see physical evidence for MS. So far nothing. Last summer she needed the aircon running all the time. It is ironic. When we built our other house 20 years ago, 2 of our neighbors who built their homes as well at that time. Now the 2 wives both have MS. They are a few years younger than my wife, but it is very ironic. The land that we built our house on was an old city dump. It was 11 acres inside the city limits that was pasture land for a small dairy farm. I remember the barn. Can't say when the farm was sold, but the barn was vacant for many years and then remodeled into a business and has since been torn down and replaced with a church. I suspect the farm and the cows were gone by the 70s. When we were having our foundation dug, we found out it was an old city dump site. Our house is built on a double foundation. We dug down till we hit virgin soil. If you stand on the basement floor, there is 10 courses of 12 inches block that goes down to the footers, and that was all filled in with dirt. So, the footers for the house are about 12 feet below the basement floor. I was there for the construction and did a lot of the work myself. When they were excavating for the footers, there was bricks, block, Belgium block, asphalt, terracotta sewer pipe, concrete, and a few cans of lead paint. I was told that the site was used for the sewer works to dump some of the stuff they dug up when they repaired sewer lines in the city streets. Can't say how long ago. Never had the soil tested. The next door neighbor had the same issue as us with having to dig down, but the other neighbor did not. It seemed to me at the time that the dump site incorporated our property and the neighbor's lot, and that was it. I suspect that the city dumped stuff there for a short period of time. I would estimate the dump site to be no larger than about 100 feet by 100 feet. I guess with the various chemicals that could have been dumped in there as well that I should get it tested. My wife does not eat artificial sweeteners. I do have clients whose wife eliminated all grain based upon her doctor's recommendation, and we can try that. My wife has been making her own bread, rich in whole grains. I used to make the bread all the time. She has been making vegetable smoothies and fruit smoothies with a nut bullet her brother sent her. She has eliminated quite a bit of stuff in her diet but has increased whole grains and beans. She says this has helped her. She does not eat a lot of dairy. Keep in mind that my wife has psoriatic arthritis, which is an anti-immune disease. Was on chemo for over 6 years for this. She stopped the chemo a few months ago as her doctor was concerned about drug-induced lupus. They are testing her for this. Apparently, the test for this is very specific. They don't think she has it, but they want to rule it out. Psoriatic arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis are very similar and treatment is basically the same. But my wife's doctors looked at my wife's symptoms, and based upon my research they are correct. So, my wife has changed her diet fairly radically. We will look at the grain issue as I have heard about this as well. I do think though that it is all anti-immune related. Also, with the stenosis of the cervical spine due to arthritis, that just adds to it all. Her new rheumatologist agreed with the former one my wife was seeing and does not want to start chemo at this point. My wife was seeing her former rheumatologist for several years, and on her last visit a few weeks ago, she told my wife that her symptoms are beyond her scope of practice, and my wife stated that she was going to start seeing a new one the following week. So it was a very appropriate visit. The new rheumatologist stated that she is willing to explore all possibilities at this time and scheduled a host of more tests to include a repeat of some of the past ones. My wife had another 13 vials of blood taken last evening. I think this was the least amount since she started having blood tests. Her neurologist's visit yesterday revealed that my wife may very well have a very rare condition, but only time will tell. The doctor saw my wife's newest symptom, red and warm hands and feet, and talked a little about it. I forget what she called it. And my wife said that her other foot has started to go numb, and that is new. About a month later, took some time off work to get our other house on the market. Our youngest son has been living there. Met with a realtor, had a plan to get it on the market by the beginning of August, and then my youngest son decided he wants to buy it and gave me an offer. He is approved for a mortgage and we don't need a realtor. A win-win. My wife continues to see more specialists and more tests. She has been diagnosed with many errors, but that is only one of her problems. She may have her hearing eliminated, chemically, in her left ear. It will be irreversible. The problem is that she can get the same condition in her right ear and will then possibly be totally deaf. She as of last week has basically lost her sense of taste. It seems like every 2 weeks or so, she develops another symptom that just adds to her misery. She has thoughts that God is punishing her for what she did to me and our family. All I can say is my wife continues to get worse and continues to see more specialists. I can honestly say that it is very difficult to have compassion on my wife after what she has done. Yet I spent one day of my vacation sitting in doctors' offices from 7:30 a.m. till after 6:30 p.m. and 4 other days sitting for several hours as she saw more doctors or had more tests. At this point she can't drive and is becoming more and more emotional. She has lost 70% of her hearing in her left ear and may be totally deaf in that ear soon. She is losing her sense of taste. She is very unbalanced, can't drive, can't work, has a constant headache, has double vision. Believe it or not, she has double vision in just her left eye. I asked her neuro-ophthalmologist about this. He explained it. Makes no sense that a person can have double vision out of one eye. Yet it is not uncommon. She has trouble urinating. And I can go on and on. I have enough things to keep me busy that I enjoy doing, and it does offer a distraction. But this is emotionally draining at times. About 3 months later, my wife's health condition has been up and down. I had to take her to the ER this past Friday. Her family doctor told her to go as they thought she was having heart issues. Her heart is fine. Her potassium was low and it was causing fatigue. She has developed peripheral neuropathy and we don't know the cause of this. She got a hearing aid and that is helping her with her Meniere's. I had a swallowing issue that started when I was in Iraq. I have had many tests done since 10 years ago. Finally, I had a test done a little over a month ago that finally identified my condition. It is a long story, but they sent me drugs without explaining which ones to take and which ones to discontinue. I ended up in the ER 3 times. One of those times I came very close to having a heart attack due to the interactions of the medication and receiving no clear instructions. After my near-death experience, the other meds they put me on sent me to the land of confusion, and once again I went to the ER. They now have it straightened out. Triggers. I have not had that many in the past several months until 2 weeks ago and yesterday. The first one had to do with my wife going to an Eagles game with her brother and nephew. My wife became an Eagles fan out of the blue in the summer previous year. Due to the XOM being an Eagles fan, I found it strange then and questioned her about it, and she said she was always an Eagles fan. I remember telling her that in over 25 years of marriage this is the first time in our marriage that you ever had interest in football. Little did I know, my wife did approach me about going to the game with her brother and said she knows this might trigger me and that she would not go if it caused distress. I consented, but for the first time in many months I checked out the XOM's and his wife's FB page just to make sure he was not going to the game. The XOM and his family was at the beach. The other trigger was yesterday. I had taken my wife's GPS after D-Day and bought her a new one later. I found the GPS the other day and actually forgot why I took it and plugged it in to see if it still worked. I went to put in an address to test it and all the addresses from her cheating time came up. I am still dealing with that crap from yesterday, though I do not bring up the past much due to my wife's illness. If I do ask a question, my wife will answer without hesitation. I am not sure why she has gotten so ill after coming clean and repenting. I have periodically checked on things and she has been really clean. She wants to visit with her middle sister and have her down to our house. I have stated that she can do this without me, and if she comes to our house, which she has never seen, that I will not be around. My wife says she wants me to be part of this and I just can't be around her middle sister, and I think I will never get over what she did. My wife has used the widow pitch that since this sister is a widow that we are obligated to help her. I said, she has a millionaire brother and a son-in-law who makes tons of money. I told her that I feel no obligation to help her and that in fact I want nothing to do with her. My wife has left this alone. 1 year ago, I had to take some time off. Firstly, I don't hold any ill feelings to those who feel I should have left my wife. If I had a redo, having reflected many times on how I did things, having known what I know now, I would have left my wife in early years following the first D-Day. Second, I can honestly say that I still feel that I did nothing in our marriage to cause my wife to cheat. Third, the wife I have now is not worth what I had put up with in our marriage. I have not won a prize. She is ill most days. She became very ill a few months after she came clean, and though she has improved over the past year, her health is still fairly poor. She could not drive a car for more than a year. Frankly, I feel that she deserves being ill. She suffers, and when she asks me why she is so ill, I answer with I don't know why, yet in the back of my mind I feel she is being punished. She has reunited with her middle sister, and her middle sister was involved with some of her cheating over the years. I saw her on set in at a wedding a month or so ago, and my sister-in-law looks horrible. She can barely walk, has agoraphobia, is in a constant state of a big pity party, and asked me at the wedding, pleading with me to tell her what is wrong with her. I simply told her, I have no idea. I could diagnose her. As I said, she has agoraphobia, plus anxiety disorder, panic attacks, etc., etc. And as I witnessed on Saturday, I said to my wife that her sister looks horrid. If there is a karma bus, both my wife and my sister-in-law got hit hard by it, and they are still being drugged down the street. Fourth, I stay busy doing things around the house. My woodworking shop continues to grow. I have American chestnut beams in half my 2-car garage, and I am slowly getting them ready for various projects in my house. Fifth, my job is going well. For whatever reason, I get the worst cases from a mental health perspective to deal with in counseling. If a person has schizophrenia, I get them. I had stopped going to the locked acute psychiatric units at the hospital and was contacted by the lead doctor there that the patients are complaining that I am not coming there anymore and they requested that I restart the groups. The patients stated that I understand them. I can say that I don't support their delusions and challenge them in how they view life. I talk straight to them and don't baby them. I doubt that her health will ever improve. The meds that she was on that did offer some relief had serious side effects, as one was leading her to be totally blind. Her optometrist told her if she stayed on it for 6 more months it would have been irreversible. She was on chemo for over 7 years and she had to stop it due to side effects, and now her right wrist is locked and will no longer function, and that is irreversible. She may lose the use of other joints. She faces the possibility of losing her hearing in her left ear. Her good days are constant headaches, constant ear ringing, feeling flu-like symptoms, vertigo and vision issues. When she gets an attack, which is happening about twice a month, she is laid up in bed for days. If she mows our yard, she is laid up for about a day or so. Though she is thin, her blood pressure is very high and she was put on a med for that. She stopped taking it after 3 days. It was making her sick. I have thought about the issue of my wife's health. Had she not gotten ill, would she had started back up? Maybe. I can say that my healing was put on hold and since this incident, and it never progressed after that time. My relationship with my wife is cool at best. I don't talk to her much and can't tell you the last time we really hugged or bonded. It has to do more with her being ill, and I got tired of repeating myself due to her loss of hearing. I got frustrated with her telling me how sick she is feeling and I can see it in her face, so I basically just let her alone. I am not a martyr. My faith allows me to divorce my wife without regret. So, no obligation. The pledge for better or worse was broken when she cheated the first time. I have no guilt. I did nothing to make my wife cheat. It is due in part to her illness. There have been days where I just wanted to drop her off at the XOM's house and say, "You take care of her." How do you redevelop intimacy when a person has constant ear ringing, headaches, etc.? How do you ask questions when the doctors are suggesting that she might be paralyzed the rest of her life? Or she might be totally blind, etc. Her sisters never visited. Her youngest brother came up once when she was extremely ill, and that was only for half an hour, and it was because he was in town for a ball game. I was the only person caring for my wife and still am. I do get angry, but I find outlets for that. The outside of my house is half painted and the basement remodel is slowly getting done. I do woodworking as well. Hospitals, ER visits, doctor visits, and so on. Then it continued to last year. She could not drive at all. She just started driving again early this year. There were and still are days where she will be in bed. We took a financial hit when she quit her job, and my health insurance premiums have gone up as well as our co-pays. The last 2 years I have paid $70,000 in co-pays typically by the end of May, and it is all on my wife. We have managed some trips to Cancun, the Bahamas, etc., but those trips suck. There were days where she is in bed, and on good days by the afternoon she was basically done. In Cancun there were a few times where I basically had to carry her. I saw my wife's sister at a wedding a month or so ago, and I dropped my wife off at her house this past Saturday. I can't stand her sister. Her sister can hardly walk and has mental issues. Ironically, her sister was involved with my wife in the past with cheating. I refuse to have a pity party. My comment. That was the final update to this my story. What do you guys think? It seems OP chose this ending. What would you do in this situation? Comment down your feelings to this final ending. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? I need a good sleep and prepare for tomorrow's stories for you guys. Stay safe, and hopefully you learned something from this story.